Okay, I can't stand it when people start blabbering on about their little personal life crap when they're trying to get to the point on the video. Now, I have had 2 flights going there from Detroit, where I don't live, but I had to fly to Detroit, and that flight got canceled, and I ended up staying a night in Detroit. And on the way back, I flew to Paris. On the way back, I flew from Paris. That flight got canceled too, and it was a connection flight. I'm not complaining, really. Certainly not about staying in Paris, but that's where I am, and it's kind of 9:13 at night. And why don't I just make a video? Oh, God, why am I doing this? Somebody asked a question about the balance sheet balancing and debt service reserve account and gave me this. Now, I want to say something. I got to slow down just a tiny, tiny bit. I am going to have a class. I'm going to have a class. It's almost free. Maybe I'm going to ask for a tiny little donation, $50, something like that. And then, as part of that class, if you want to practice, and if you don't practice yourself, you don't get anything out of any of these classes I do. If you practice yourself, then I'll go over what you did, and we'll talk about it for a while, and it might be an actual model you're working on, and I might charge you a few $100 for that, dollars. Okay, let's go. So here's the model I got, and I thought, it doesn't look that bad. Why in the hell didn't they use generic macros? Why did they start here and not put a blank column in A and make B the one that kind of goes down a little? Why didn't they do that? Why didn't they color the sheets properly? That was my first reaction, and that's what these people at Deloitte, some people from Deloitte actually call me sometimes, so I shouldn't moan about them so much. And then I started looking. I said, okay, let's go find this debt service reserve account. Where is it? DSRA balance. And somebody said, he said the balance sheet didn't balance. Why didn't the balance sheet balance? And there was a separate financial statement, and the first thing I looked, they did these little half-year things. Fancy. And then, let me see. Let's look at some of this stuff. Why would you use an if statement here? Oh, shit. You did the and. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to complain. Did not mean to complain. But the biggest problem here, we can't start looking at this with 2 different timelines. So I'm going to try to fix the model really fast. Okay, do I have the first thing, we absolutely have to have a common timeline. So there was a start period and end period, but this is the start of the construction period. And it looks like there were half years, and then they put 5 in here and all that crap, illegal kind of. So here, let's start here, and let's go down, and we're going to use generic macros because I spent so much stupid time on it, and I've noticed people don't use it at all, and I'm going to make a period. Now, what they did here, too, is obviously they didn't use Shift-Control-R because Alt-O-C unhide. Let's unhide the rest of this stuff. And that's the very first thing let's do is let's get a common timeline. So let's put let's start over here and put a timeline here. And then once we have a timeline, let's just make a period counter. Now you could do this a whole bunch of different ways, and getting this right could be really tricky. And I'm going to go to 100, and I'm going to put equal sequence. And then I'm with a comma 100. That should be enough. I think it's a 20, let's put 150, okay? Just in case. And then the first thing we do is put our construction period before we even do dates. And here's why you could do the construction before and get this over here. And when you get this, there's no construction period, 18 months. Obviously, you want that to be flexible, and you put equal that, less than or equal to this, F4, Shift-Control-R, Shift-Control-B, because I got the generic macros open. And then you can put the months in period. And if I spell things wrong, who gives a crap, okay? And let's put the months in the period, and down here, maybe insert a couple of months thing here and put construct months, construction. Let's see over months, operation, okay? And then let's put months in the construction period. We have 1. In the operation period, we have 6. And shift control R, shift control whatever, shift alternate C, and we're going to get some good kind of structure here, okay? And we'll put this in column. Shit! Why in the hell? Okay, this. Oops! I'm going to erase that. Okay. Okay, let's put some timing and then some operating cash flows. Okay, and then we'll shift control C. We can do this as many times as we want. Okay, and that comes from, you go down to my home page and you click on the whatever, you click on that. That's really important. And let's put a better kind of color in this stuff, because Hetty worries so much about the color. Let's take, I don't know, this one. Okay, so we go with this one, Alt-EST. We initialize it. Okay, and it's got to appear, because Price Waterhouse, and that's another model I had open. Price Waterhouse tells you, first impression is the biggest deal in these models. And then I hope that I have this. And then what we'll do over here is press Shift Control D. You should never do something. Shit. Why doesn't that work? Because I got the damn, I got to pause for 1 second. Oh, they have that shortcut overridden. So we'll do Shift Control D later on. Don't do this. Don't do this, because then because then you can't make a sensitivity analysis, and don't do all this shit. Sorry, don't do that, because the whole idea of input C is you put all that stuff over here. Now, I'm not going to bother with all that crap right now, because the first thing we're going to do is get our timeline straightened out. So once we have the months in the period and the construction period, and that's 0, 1, and then we can say, okay, well, let's get 1 month in our construction period, and let's get 6 months post-construction period, okay? And then we can put a little if statement. If it's true, then we go to 1, otherwise we go to 6, Shift Control R, and we have 6 and 1. And then we can get the start period. Now for the start period, I think what we probably should do is get the whole model starting period. And what I'm going to do is cheat just a little bit. I'll go over here and go back to the input page, and we start with 1 day before the construction period. And then what do we have over here? Come on, please. When you don't get the timeline right, nothing else is going to work. So you go over here. God damn it. What's going over here? I hope I didn't just make a circular reference. And then you put, if you want EO month or E date, let's put EO month, because they did that. And then you take this month and you take this 1 or 6 and put -1 in here, and you take these two together, Shift Control R. And this should have been this one +1. Why didn't I Shift Control R? And then we start with this, and then when we go over to this construction period, we have 1. And if you're all worried about this fancy formatting, you can put the little operation and construction here. If you do that, that's again in the generic macros. Maybe this is a thing about the generic macros. So you can make your little thing, construction, development, operations, all that kind of stuff, and put different colors and choose what colors you want in that stuff. Okay? God damn it. Why does she jerk all the stupid messages? Okay, now, what is this? This some crap. Let's put it over here. And let's put right at the top, why is this? Some, okay, no, just some. And then what I do is, because I got in trouble so often with this, I put Shift Control V for Victor, and look, it doesn't work because we because for some reason it didn't copy all the way over. And then if you got different things, Shift Control R, Control Space Bar, and make it wider. Okay. All right, so we got this, and then this operation flag they did. Okay, we can leave this little stuff in here, I guess, and now we can put equal and, no if statement, please. This is greater than or equal to this one, F4 or F4 twice, and I guess you can put this one and less than or equal to this one if you want to be silly enough to do all that crap, and then Shift Control V for Victor, and we had a 20-year, 5-year project, so we know this. And this semi-annual BS, let's first just put, if you really want to count get the operational year, first put the operation, let's call that an operation counter. Oh, come on. Now, where is the, oh, I guess they put the stuff over here. You know, I don't know what you want to do. I really want that thing to, and then go backwards one and get the operation flag. And then once you have that, you can get the, oh, I hope we don't need this. Let's get the operation year, which you always do round of the operation counter. Round up, divide by 2, comma 0. Let's put that one with round up. Okay, Shift Control R, and that's the kind of stuff. Oops, yes. So then we got the year, and I'm gonna leave this crap half year shit. Who cares? I'm gonna press Alt WFF here, Alt WFF again, because those are the ones I really want. Let's get some coloring here, okay, and let's. Come on, just why, if you send stuff to me, wouldn't you want, wouldn't you say, I like your crap, because now I can see that I took these ones from the whatever, and this one, I don't know why that didn't work. It was probably because of the stupid little plus sign. Why people bother with that crap? Shift Control R again, and let's do that. Okay, so now what we'll really focus on is more than anything else is all this stuff. Now this, so if they put the generation profile, just let me give you another thing here. Oh, God, they put up here all of these, I don't know what, things in USD millions, and then USD millions, and then megawatts, kilowatts, kilowatts. Put them all in the same units. Then you're going to have to divide by a million, multiply by a million. Just put them in USD, but I'm not going to bother with that. What's this capacity here? Do they have any? So the capacity, of course, what you would do is put an equal sign F4, and you got you got the operation flag. Okay, and this crap with the repayment flag, we're going to move this downstairs to where we start doing the funding. Maybe it's somewhere around here. I haven't even looked at this model. Okay. And why not? Why wouldn't you do this? Shift Control Q, maybe, okay. And then what happened? All this silly crap with the wasting time on F1 the first half of the year. Let's press Alt MD. Oh crap! Did they use it ever? Oh my God! Why would you use something like this? I'm so pissed off right now. I'm just going to delete that. Jesus. Okay, and the capacity factor, I suppose we could do the same thing. Put, why this? Alt MAA, okay? Equals this, F4 multiplied by, just fine. Shift Control P, Shift Control R, availability factor if you really want to do that, Shift Control. And this, they obviously fucking, I used the Kenny shit here. put all this together, and what then they have some big long formula. Oh, how horrible. Oh, I shouldn't complain so much. I should not complain so much. Okay, so now we could do generation before degradation. Why would you? I can't speak. Okay, I've already wasted too much time on this, but let's multiply this by this, by this. Okay, Shift Control W, Shift Control R. I just kind of want to show you if we have a degradation index, we'll put a 1 here. If you want to make that, multiply that by 1 plus the degradation index minus, of course, multiplied by the operation flag again. You put the flags where you need them, really. And you put a minus here, okay, and Shift Control Q and Shift Control R. I'm not going to complain because actually the person who did this didn't do a bad job on this, okay? And this is what we should have done here is put percent, maybe I don't know what to do with all this crap. You put 1 plus this, plus this. Raised to this is semi-annually, so you raise to the 0.5 minus 1. That's what we should have done and got that. So we should have used the, since we're doing it semi-annually, we should have used that one, okay? And look at this. Why do we have kilowatt hours for, oh shoot, what did I do here? I didn't press F4, okay? And that's that. So, why? Why would you multiply this by 1,000 and all that? 10 to the third. I gotta leave that, I guess. But this time, why? Oh, I can't stand it when you waste all those lines like that. Shift Control W, Shift Control R. Okay, so now we get our. Oh shit. Where's this one? Oh, I got to multiply it by the capacity, and then I guess I'm going to multiply it by 1 e to the third, just be even fancier than that. And this is generation after degradation, so just in case we use this below, we'll put that down here, okay? And then screw this one, okay? So please, this is the kind of stuff that I actually think is important, so the PPA price is fixed. I thought there wasn't any escalation, and then why does this? Okay, all right, and then let's get the revenue. Why would you put the revenue above when you get it down here? And you better put this in USD or whatever, because now this is, and this you better put this price is USD per kilowatt hour, and that's an enormously high price, and that's the first thing you should say. Nobody in their right mind would pay 8.5 right now, and the first thing you should have done is when we compute the capex, we should divide that by the KW and see if we've got a number of about 500, 400, 360 USD per KW, which is what you're getting now. And look at this. Look at this. You put an equal sign, and let's call this oh Jesus. Let's call this O&M inflation index. Okay, and let's just practice doing it fast. And you go over here and you put an equal sign, and instead of that long formula, you take this one, but then you might have made a mistake because we have to do the same thing. 1 plus this 2% raised to the 0.5 power minus 1, Shift Control P, this one, multiply that by 1 plus this one, F4, multiply it by the operating flag. Now, please don't say, oh, I'm afraid, I'm not going to give you any of my models because I don't want you moaning too much, but I'm just in a funky mood. Okay, and this O&M cost, they said was $2 million US per what? And let's find, what was it? Per annum. F5. Okay, and I suppose they probably put this and this, I don't know. Okay, put it this USD millions over here, whatever, and then again Shift Control D would do it. Let's just make sure everything's going all the way out now. And oh, you put the revenues over here, and this better be this one, I assume. Okay, and the revenues are this times the generation after the degradation. It says before. I hope it's generation after. Sorry about that. Okay, I didn't mean to be going slow. It's Shift Control W, Shift Control R. Okay. And then let's take our O&M expense, and that will be the O&M inflation index multiplied by the number. I suppose we could divide by 2. We should put, if we wanted to fancy, we could divide it by this 2 months in period and multiply it by the operating flag. Okay, okay. And I guess somebody's going to moan that, why are you copying it every time? Why don't you just do everything in one column, and that's fine. So we've got the and then I don't know why we put the and there's variable cost in a solar. Jesus. Okay, they're crazy kind of assumptions people make. Okay, and I would probably put this over here, and this is where we started up here. We started with a free cash flow items. Okay, and then okay, they put the OPEX. Fine. I hope we have this now. And it looks like I did something wrong. I'm pressing Shift Control Q. Why did I? Shit. Just a minute. Okay, this should be about 0.5. So I divided by. I should have divided it by 6 and multiplied it by 12. Okay. Fine. Let's just divide it by 2. Screw it for now, okay? Okay, that's very, very bad, I know. And the variable cost, what is this? This is the variable cost. Okay, all right. What's the variable cost on a solar project? Okay, very good. Now, that's not obviously the person who did it's fault. So we can take this one, press F4, multiply it by the inflation index, multiply it by the generation. And we're in X, the generation up here. And this generation's the very last thing. So I might even press Shift Control G to show you that that's kind of the key thing we want. And then we have our revenue that we need. And then after the revenue we need, we will get okay, and Shift Control Q, Shift Control R, and I didn't multiply it by this, so I took this. Oh no, this. Sorry, this number, lock that, multiplied. I have to talk to myself, multiplied by this, and you should. I don't think it's bad to talk to yourself when you're doing this kind of stuff. Let's make sure I have the generation in there, okay? And again, this one, oh, Jesus. Okay, let's make another column for the sum. Shift Control V for Victor, and obviously I didn't. I should have taken the energy before the degradation, and we can see that's why you do the sum functions, and we should fix all this stupid size and stuff. What I do is if you press Shift Control here, if I work through each sheet and get a consistent format, that's what I try to do sometimes, but I'm not going to waste my time on this right now. And so we've got what's going on here? Where's our sum? The sum, I said we're going to put it over here. I wish I could get that Shift Control D working on the stupid videos, but I can't. Okay, there's our fixed O&M cost. Oh, God. This is 2 million. This can't be right. Okay, now what I did is I wasted some time by putting our little Shift Control D that I kept talking about. By the way, why they why you don't cut off the sheet. Now, and again, this would be just ridiculous. Not ridiculous. I'm going to try to be much more polite here. I'm sorry. Now, there's a circular reference where it goes from one sheet to the other, and really that's the big thing I'm going to kind of talk about. That we really need to move everything to one column, because if anybody asks you to do sensitivity analysis, then you go up to the top, and this is the implemented case, and then you have all these other cases. Okay, so those are. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, and it's getting late, and I'm gonna take a break pretty soon for whatever. So let's constriction period kind of from COD. Come on, I got the caps lock on. I don't know how you do this, but something like this, okay? That's the whole idea of calling this thing an input C sheet, okay? And this is operation 2 or something. I've never, of course, done it like this, but why not? And then you can do a couple of calculations in your sheet. Now all these little inputs, let's press Control-Alt-C again, and then let's just remove all the borders and lines and the conditional formatting, so we got a nice clean sheet. And then Control-Alt-C, and then we kind of have a better way to do this, I think. Okay, and inputs. Now the one thing I did do, and in the CapEx, I couldn't resist computing the CapEx per kW. 1,800. It's not even so. It's so far from being the truth. And what's happened now? There's another revolution. There's another revolution that's changing the way I think about everything. Oh, it's so hard because the battery costs have come down so dramatically. Now batteries plus solar are better than so many other alternatives, and I'm sorry if you've got a lot of sunlight. And then we have these circular references that go from one sheet to the other, and that's exactly why we're doing this. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm sorry to be going a lot about this whole generic macros, but I just, especially if you can get a hold of this, it's like I made it for. And then this time I put the model unit and the input unit in a different page. I don't know what you're going to do, but avoid that whole, fast modeling crap where you did that. And this one, this is another, this is the life. No, this one, I don't think we need anymore. Okay. And then this half year stuff, let's take that out too. Shift control right, it's a shift alternate right arrow, Control-Alt-C, and put this one. And now, Jackie, okay, that's my daughter. All right, why are these things not, why? Oh, that takes from the different input sheet. Fine, we should fix that later. Okay, good. So now the idea here, there was no, in this one, there was no project IRR. Most of these people ask for a project IRR somewhere down here. And to get a project IRR, you better put somewhere down here, you better put free cash flow. And let's do that pre-tax. And then let's get a tax project IRR, and we'll use the X IRR for doing that. And then we put some fixed assets here, I guess, after we got the CapEx. And then, they do all this BF brought forward, CF carried forward. Then you show you're really cool if you do that kind of stuff, okay? And then they have a tax stuff here, but the tax should be computed, maybe you could put this NOL before, and how was this? Okay, not so bad. Well, okay. All right, so let's work through some of those things, and I guess now we have the total revenues. I took okay, I'll put a double underline there. All right, I took a very long break, and I was in the plane, and I kind of modified some of the formatting of the sheets, and I left some calculations, particularly the debt service reserve account, taxes, cash flow, waterfall, circular references, and financial statements for us to do together. Now, just let's kind of see where we are. Let's look at the input page. Okay, so this input page, obviously, I'm saying obvious way too many times, sorry. We should have one column in this input page, and the way they structured typically these tests is, with certain exceptions about S-curves or something else, you can have one column. If you have one column, you can use the index function, and I don't think I have to do that for the umpteenth time, saying that you could switch, do a whole bunch of scenarios. Okay. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Maybe I'm getting too old for all this crap. When I introduce myself, I tell them I'm way too old to be modeling still. And then we're going to put some, as they had these timeline issues, I decided to make one timeline where we use annual. So we have 12 months in each period for both the construction and the operation. And then we have our here, I didn't even put this. We have 1 month here for the rest of these, okay? And then we'll be able to make sure the model is giving us about the same results where we use annual model or not annual model. And that little drop-down box is made with the developer tab, and I've gone through that way too much. But when you use the developer tab, don't ever forget to, don't ever forget to go from sheet to sheet, and then it's actually useful. If you don't go from sheet to sheet, it's not useful. If you use one of these things, you have to use the transpose function, so you go to a different sheet, back to this sheet, and then go down. Okay, and as this is, the whole idea of this is to kind of introduce to you that I am going to have these kind of, if not free, very, very low cost sessions. And the usefulness of these sessions will be that you do this stuff together. Here, we're doing this while I'm talking. You do this together, and then when you do, and don't worry about the spill, you always get it first, and then you switch, and you just, all you're doing with this whole drop-down box is changing the title, and that the fact that Excel put that transpose thing is a real big deal. Let's compare that to where we were before. Oops, I'm doing some reconciliation of Excel from IRR. I put that in I'm going to make a video on that. It's too kind of basic. It wasn't basic for me. So if we look at this this way we started with it, okay, I put the periodicity, if we want to call it that. This would be horrible. Putting the units on this side would be a mess. Well, that's not really true, because you could put all your scenarios over here. But this would definitely be a problem. You need to move these down. And let me see. And, I don't quite not understand putting this over to column B so we can do our little formatting, and putting the timing. Maybe, did I put the timing here before the general stuff? Okay. And then I kind of went crazy a little bit talking about the cost per kilowatt, and for me this is the correct number somewhere around here. Now, in 3 months it might change, and this is the correct number. So they had kind of crazy inputs in this, but whatever. If you want to use them, now let's go back to back through this stuff, and let's go back to the. By the way, when you have that generic macros open, you can press Control Tab like you used to be able to do a long time ago. And then you, again, with that generic macros, you don't want to use it, then go and you open the generic macros up and you say, there'll be a little, not a function, a little macro that says Control Tab, and it's really easy to do. And you can have the option to put it in or out. Now, the biggest change, again, I'm repeating myself. I hope it's okay that I'm repeating myself. The biggest problem here was timelines, and that's a really good lesson. So the idea was to reconcile and work through the whole debt service reserve account. Notice I'm a little calmer today, I think. But putting different timelines on different sheets, what a pain. And then if you compute an IRR, you can't compute an IRR anymore and all that stuff. And so before we get to the DSRA and all these, let's look through some of these. Okay. I guess this would be illegal, I think. Absolutely not necessary to ever put a reference to another sheet, because if you put a reference to another sheet, you can't press the F2 anymore. These are, people talk about best practices, and some people really irritated some auditors telling me, oh, this is not best practice. Why would you put an if statement here when you can just multiply the thing by 1 and then put a comma at the end? That is not, this was largely a waste of time, but okay. Put the sum, when you do the sum columns, if I don't go all the way to the end, I get in trouble. And people who think they're fancy with this plus sign, okay, whatever. No big deal. No big deal. Let's get into this one. Similar thing. Okay, I guess I did a little bit of this already. I'm sorry, I can't keep track of what I did. Again, let's look at some of the formulas, just scan through it. Here is, for me, a really big one, is multiplying it by the 10 to the third power, multiplying it by 1,000 and then 1,000,000 and all that. What a mess. Putting an and statement together with this is too long a formula. Again, not doing the units just in simplistic terms, all kilowatt hours, all USD would be my strong recommendation. Another kind of thing, okay, if we have a semi-annual year for here is 10 to the 6, but not so bad, okay? And then it's brought forward. I've already talked about how irritating this is. Taking something from another sheet makes it really hard to follow. This is too long a formula. We should have separated this out. Taking something from the financial statements should be ridiculous, because the financial statements should just be a summary at the very end. I just don't understand that one. So these are a little bit of critiques. If I was, and I promise you, when I would make one of these things and charge you money for it, I'll be a lot more polite than this, okay? And then we have some other inputs in our formulas, so we can just go through this sum if to another sheet. The only time you should be referring to another sheet in a formula, in my opinion, is when you use the lookup function from input S, okay? Enough of this stuff. Some more sum ifs in here. Is error, some people say, should be illegal. So we have all of these formulas that we're going to work through, and this DSRA account obviously didn't work, and then they had the financial statements over here. And this is I'm sorry, that we can put a cash flow waterfall. I put a classic cash flow analysis, and I put the income statement first, then the cash flow, then the balance sheet, from old corporate modeling kind of things. And I don't know what this stuff is here. INSTRUC, the instruction. Yeah, I guess it's spelled. So here is now, when we did, for me, this was the big deal. So here, I didn't fix this enough. So if you look at some of the formulas here, okay, I started with, to make it a really flexible timeline, we got to put the periods per year in here, okay? And let me just check something here. I shouldn't check it on the, okay. We're going to make sure that when we put periodic timing in and test the model for mechanics like degradation and all that, everything works. And I'm just making sure it all works. I'm coming back to this in a minute. It's going to give us a great deal of joy. And I think we can do it now. Let's delete that sheet. Okay. And this financial statement, notice it's all a bunch of errors. We're going to make this one a annual financial statement, which means somewhere down here we're going to have to put the calendar year. All right, we put the capacities in. This I would have, I'm not going to do it again. This is just too painful. We should have. This means that it comes from the sheet. This should have been kilowatts, because we've got kilowatt hours and we've got price per kilowatt hour. Now this sheet, this comes from the LCOE analysis, which is really, really important, and I'm going to talk about it. But for right now, let's get we had the CapEx and the PPA price, and they put a 8.5 US cents PPA price, which is enormously high. So when you take anything from the other sheet. Now, the other thing, I wonder if Kenny is making something. You should be able to go to AI and say, make a sheet like this. And it should do it right. Now, this was called Gemini AI. I have no idea what that means or anything else. I'm not sure that if you can just say, put the PPA price and the revenues and expenses, make a solar model. You should be able to. And it should give you a nice format like this. These are the kind of mechanical things that should work. Now, when you put this price in, and so we have our revenues, and we have to be real. You notice I put price per kilowatt hour, and then I put revenues. I hope if you look at all of these ones now, okay, I have 24. This is highly illegal. You should put that there are 24 hours in a day, and you compute the kilowatts times the capacity factor times the hours. You get the kilowatt hours. You compute the price per kilowatt hour, multiply it by the kilowatt hours, keep them in the right units. So this was like an advanced thing. Oh, just help me with the DSRA, but there are a whole bunch more things to do. So then we put our fixed prices, fixed O&M in, which was absurdly high. And I did not trust this. Now we put our CapEx in, and there was a flat curve. And again, these are all very, very simple formulas. In each formula, you can press F2, and I strongly love getting the the number that drives the formula in the same row. I know that's a little thing. And then we compute, just like if you're in corporate finance, you would have done this. And here's what happens. When you do this, you get a 2.3% project IRR. And I thought, so I wasted a bunch of time on this. And this is classic. If you get that kind of IRR and you're doing one of these tests or models, it's really a pain. There are two possibilities. Either you made a mistake, or the people who gave you the tests made a mistake and they didn't try it first. Now, I wish it was that you made a mistake all the time so you could go back and check things. And I wasted too much time on this, but it was really worthwhile for me because I said, okay, let's take and compute the levelized cost for this. And the levelized cost is just driven by a few factors. These factors right here, these ones right here, they should be in any, whoops, I didn't mean to do that one. I don't even know what that is anymore. These factors should be in the summary page because these drive everything. So this cost was absurd. This was absurd. Variable cost, absurd. There's no such thing as a variable cost in solar, I don't think. This capacity factor, high. Okay, but could be. Degradation, typical what people use. I think this is a little low. Notice that these are blue. They came from another thing. And then we put the target IRR. So I want an IRR. I want to see what kind of price I need to get an IRR. Now, if I put a 2.31% here, 2.31% as our target IRR, I get our 0.085. So I've kind of proven that this model is kind of working okay. I can't get a word out. I'm stuttering a little bit. I had some tragedies happen with the dog. Okay, and then now we can do all sorts of little adjustments on this one, but let's put this to the annual timing so it's really easy. So we've got, in each period, we've got 12 months. We don't have to make an adjustment for the construction period, and then this whole timing factor comes to 1, and then we can adjust the IRR for degradation and O&M. We make some calculations, and I know this is a little bit pain, but you know, you can just do the whole thing in one line and get the total upfront payment, total amount you have to cover, Shift Control G maybe, and then we can put the yield in, 1 divided by the yield. So this is kilowatt per year multiplied by kilowatt per year divided by kilowatt per hour. The USD stays the same, and you get the LCOE, but you have to stick in those silly little variable costs, and then you get it. And this is the really good thing, is that if I put periodic timing, I get basically the same result. If I put no degradation, I get a higher, a different LCOE. But that's really, so I had to do all of that, and I believe so strongly in understanding what you're doing and kind of getting this before you do it. Now, I'll obviously put this, I think here's where I'm going to put it now. When I open it up, no, I'm not going to show you. Whatever. Okay. I'm going to put it on the website, and you can work through it. What I would recommend you do is, number 1, take everything out. Just delete everything and try it yourself. I've got somebody named Abdul Haki who's just amazing. Every time we have a little session, and I've learned from him, every time we have a little session, he goes to a coffee shop and practices the whole thing himself. Amazing. And he keeps practicing and practicing and practicing, and he gets really, really good. Man, he's better than me. Aha, this does not have a T in it. I knew there was something wrong with this instructions, because you can also then, you can go to these instructions and just try to put the inputs in yourself. And the person who did this, in some ways, it was really good. Okay, so let's finish. So right now, what I'm going to do is, this was a really big deal to me, because this one, unlike, there was no error. I was convinced I made an error, and I think I'm getting too low an IRR. If I get a IRR below the interest rate, the whole thing won't work, and you should really stop. If you get a 2% IRR down here, and this is this IRR is with the X IRR, okay, and you. And again, now our model FAST, flexible, because we can put annual timing in, and we just have 1 period of construction, 1 period of operation. And again, these formulas, to do that. They're not complicated. As long as you start with the kind of the monthly timing right at the very beginning. So if we change this to periodic timing, we have all these things, months, and go across. Now, of course, and what I'm hoping you do, if there's one person still watching this video, which would be a miracle of miracles, that you would take this and do what Abdulhaki does and just delete everything and try to build the whole thing yourself. I'm repeating myself, okay? And I'm doing this to illustrate what I would do if you want to really have some practice. You do it yourself, and then I criticize the heck out of you in a polite way because I'm still your friend, but I'm not going to accept crappy formatting. I'm not going to accept long formulas. I'm not going to accept references to other formulas. I'm not going to accept unstructured spreadsheets. I'm not going to accept when you don't have the units in. I'm not going to accept if you don't put the sum columns in and some stuff in a nice column. Maybe we should put a little mark on the sum column, okay? And there we go. I put it in blue, I guess. Okay, so now let's go through and do this formula because I just want to get this video finished. This maybe should be moved over to here. It's still not in column B. And so what we have is we start with, well, I'm sorry, I should show you the depreciation. Okay, we accumulate the CapEx, no big deal. And this depreciation is not polluted in any way by IDC or fees or anything related to financing. And then we say, okay, I think to reduce that long formula they had. Oh, I did this kind of badly. I pressed the Shift Control B a couple of times. I'm sorry. Did I, and I don't mean, I'm sorry, but we have okay, did I do that one? Okay, all right. We have a little AND function, not a big deal. That's why you put the beginning and opening and you make a sum that this was, they put 10 years, and again, you go over to where it's from, and you see the 10-year life, and we put the beginning when it was the whatever, the COD, and end when it's 10 years after that, and then you can take this depreciation rate, and I see nothing at all wrong with taking a sum from the one above and dividing it by. That would violate some people's idiocy on best practices. I say be creative and do things that are obvious, please, and then you make sure that the depreciation rate that starts at the commercial operation date works, and then you've got the total cost here, which you again, if you look, that's control square bracket and whatever F5, and then we put then we got the earnings before the NOL, and then I would put the NOL right after that. Now, if you look at this, there's no Shift Control R. There's no negative amount. So, but we can. It's just so easy to do this stuff once you get the hang of it. I don't use brought forward. Sorry. Ugh. I put opening and closing balance just because it irritates me when people think that a good modeler is using fancy tools, and then you put a maximum because you're going to test whether it's negative, and you go up here, right upstairs, and you put a maximum, but you put a minus on the maximum, and then you say 0, and that tests whether you have a loss. Now, when we do this, there's no loss at all, so it's kind of useless doing this. And then what you do is, if there is a loss, you put, and then we have a positive earnings before taxes. You put a maximum of this or 0, but you also have to put a minimum around that of this or the opening balance, So that NOL thing is that's how easy it really is to do. And then you take the opening balance, of course, plus this minus this. And I would always strongly suggest, and whenever you have a closing balance, they seem to I press Shift Control E to get a little underline. And then you can get a little adjusted earnings before tax, which are this one. And then if that's negative, we're going to add back the losses. If it's positive and we have some thing to use, we'll put a minus. And then I noticed that they had not put the tax rate in as a separate kind of driving little variable. So we take this one and multiply it by the tax. So take this one, multiply it by the tax rate, and we're there. Sorry about it if this is too slow and too boring. And now we can take that's our taxes just on the operation. So we go upstairs and take our free cash flow before we had this. Okay, I'm just repeating this. No, and then I can put a minus right here, and I'll put a minus on the taxes. And then we get our let's put it here. I don't know where to put these IRRs sometimes. And I actually accidentally just showed you something. To reconcile an IRR and an XIRR is really very easy. Okay, and now we have 5% IRR. This IRR, frankly, I put it in this one before. This IRR is a little bit more interesting to me because this one you can compare to the interest rate, which is a pre-tax. Interest rate is a pre-tax number. And the reason we need something like 7% is they gave us an interest rate of something like 6%. Okay, and then I just used the old Excel stuff, not generic macros, at Shift Control 7. Okay, and then now we're gonna let's work through our financing requirements. Okay, and that's, again, I don't think that was clear in the other one. And what you need to really understand is that we have two cash flow statements: one pre-COD commercial operation when the thing starts, one after. So we've got our regular old capex that are not influenced by any financing. And then I'm going to cheat a little bit, because if we really explained this and if it was in a class, I'd do it a little better. But these things cause circular references, all the remainder of these things. And the way to do this, and I didn't see how it was done in the other one really, we can, and I learned this from stealing from people, and I think I have this kind of out of order. Just a minute. Let's put these things: commitment fee, upfront fee, interest during construction, and the debt service reserve account. Let's put those down here into our fixed block. Okay. And then I left one for CFADS because I wasn't absolutely sure. So these numbers, we haven't computed them yet, but these numbers, unlike anything else in our spreadsheet, these numbers create a circular reference, and anybody who says they don't is so full of shit. It's whatever. And we go through, and where is, that's our balance sheet, and I go to our circular reference, and I just lost it. And it was here. It was in line 186. And I happen to put them in the same order. I'm learning here because I normally wouldn't do that. Okay, and then we press alternate equal, and those numbers we haven't computed yet. But don't despair. That's a whole lot easier to compute than you might think. Shift Control V on all of these for Victor. And then they didn't really say how to do this. They might have. I didn't see it. Let's put a classic little Shift Control E underline. Remember, wasting time with formatting. If you want to talk about one thing that should be fixed with AI, but I gave you generic macros. I'm not claiming this generic macros is AI, that's for sure. Okay, because it was very much not machine learning, but learning the hard way, which was putting my head against the wall. Okay, so then I suggest here, when we get to the once you have the amount of debt you need here, okay, now this debt is going to be influenced by this stuff. And that's why we have a circular reference. It's like my old Maserati. You have to buy, you go to the bank, say, I want a car, I want a car. The bank says, okay, we'll lend you $100,000, and then the bank says it's a 50% fee. Oh, and then you say, okay, I need 150,000. The bank said, no, I need more fees. And then you say, okay, I'll make the loan bigger, and then the loan gets bigger, then the fee gets bigger, blah, 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 blah. And Excel doesn't do that. And this is so amazing that we have all this stuff, adding Python to Excel, putting lambdas in Excel, all this crap, and they can't solve two things. The goal seek doesn't always work. I hate it when it doesn't work, and I'm going to show you how to fix that. And the circular reference creates such a mess with this copy-paste. It's indescribable. Okay, so we put our flags in here with a little AND function. Okay, and I guess these are the, oh no, I left this other one in here. I'm going to leave it in there because I'm sick of changing it. And then we put the days in the period, which were this. Okay, and that must have been the earlier person because I didn't bother with this little plus sign. Okay, and the days in the period might be because you want 360 days on the financing. And the repayment now is a horrible write-up because they don't say the debt size has to be either by debt to capital or by the DSCR. The DSCR, if you're going to use the DSCR and you have a limit from the debt to capital, you're going to size the debt with a debt to capital and use the DSCR for repayment, it's going to create a mess because it's like two equations and we've got two unknowns and whatever, one equations, two unknowns, that kind of stuff, okay? There's only one way to do it. And then we're going to get the CFADS. The CFADS might cause so let's get the CFADS. Now the CFADS, I'm going to get that from downstairs too. And how about this? For this one, let's go down because I don't want to compute it without. We've got taxes paid, and after we get the taxes paid, we have a cash flow waterfall. Let's start with this cash flow waterfall. Let's get our EBITDA, which we got from above. That's what the one we'll always start with, and. After we get our EBITDA, let's put our taxes paid from right here, okay? And then we get our CFADS. This is a cash flow waterfall. You could argue that this taxes paid should have been as a negative, and then we should have, in all of our subtotals, added this together. Now, when you're doing the real calculations, I wouldn't do that. And then so far we have no taxes. We'll have to put them in. And then it's very likely that that's going to create a circular reference too, okay? And after that, we can, let's put a whole bunch of subtotals. I'm going to put those with G. No. I'm going to put those with E. Okay, I've got somebody waking up, and okay. And then we're going to just continue. Where am I? So let's get our CFADS. Whenever you want to compute the repayment, and I didn't really explain that what we really need to do is get the repayment here. This CFADS, by the way, that really should be from the fixed CFADS. Let's see if we have a circular reference. Let's wait with this until we do the taxes. And then we can get our target the target debt service, which is the interest plus the principal from this. Okay. Whoops. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to press Shift Control. Okay, good. Shift Control V for Victor. Okay, and then we're going to down here. let's do something that I will take a great joy with doing, which is getting rid of this. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't want to be a snob modeler. Okay, and let's put the opening balance and go down and get the closing. Okay, and maybe I should put a thing on the closing, and then the drawdown we can take from just up here in the debt schedule. Oh, it's blue. We'll have to redo that one, and then we let's put this sculpted repayment. Just a minute. Now we're going to get the interest expense in just a minute. So this sculpted repayment, I'm going to make a formula here. You could have argued, you should have done this in a whole separate line, but that's the debt service is interest plus principal. So, repayment is debt service minus interest. Okay, and then let's leave the cash flow out for now because we cannot compute the cash flow until we're at the sweep until we're finished, and we'll add this, subtract this one, even though it's not there yet. Just okay, and then we'll put our closing balance, Shift Control E. This is a big test for me. Putting Shift Control V for Victor, Shift Control V, and it's completely different. And you notice that it went down to 0, and the fast way to do this, which is really wrong, and I should make so many different videos about this, I don't make enough maybe, is that this, just putting a minimum statement in here is like the worst you can do for the IRR. But these should be the same, and then we can get the 6%, 0.5%. Now, if you do this, I suppose you can. Let's put the annual interest rate. I mean, if you really want to show you're kind of bragging about something that's meaningless, you can put the annual interest rate in, and then put how many days we have in the period up there, which they put in here, and you divide that by 360, which should be some kind of constant, and you get some ratio. Okay, and then you can get the periodic interest rate by multiplying these two things together and show how cool you are. And that goes up after you do this. And if you did everything right, when we put annual timing in, we get a little bit of a different interest rate, okay, but it's always the same. So that's making our model really flexible, and it's easy to do, and you don't have a whole lot of what was I going to say? Long formulas, okay? Illegal long formulas. So we're going to make the interest during the construction period, okay? And this was Shift Control Q. Is that right? We take, no, I'm going to multiply that by the opening balance, excuse me, okay? No, this is periodic interest rate, and then let's take this periodic interest rate, multiply it by the opening balance, and multiply it by the operation period, okay? And then we'll get that. Okay, whatever you could, if you want, Shift Control V, okay? And then we can start putting in the fees. And let's just do that quickly. I put a little flag in here for the fees. And we get our total debt facility here, and we get this from the input page, and all you do is you take this one multiplied by this one, F4 multiplied by a flag. Oh shoot, I got a little bit of a different size here, and then we got our upfront fee. Now, if you would put this upfront fee up here and take this upfront fee and take this one and get this one from this one, we'd have a circular reference. So instead, what you could do is you take the upfront fee down here and stick it in the circular reference one. And why does it have it? Did I put it out of order? Oh, we got to put this in the same order. Okay, we put this one up here, and then when we go to the upfront fee, we take an equal sign and we put this one in here. Okay, and then eventually we'll add everything up. I hope, but I better do this. And I put this as the commit. No. Okay, I'm continuing. Oh my gosh, my voice is gone. And I hope to really get things finished. But this is another thing I stole from Kenny and other people. This idea of putting all of the circular references into one block, grab anything, CFADS, commitment fee, upfront fee, anything, DSRA for sure, and put a fixed block and then a computed block in here. The computed block is just going to come from the calculation. So we just did the upfront fee, and once we do the upfront fee, you can see I get a little difference, and Control and F3 to look at our range names, and we have this computed block, which is the whole thing, not including the sum at the bottom, and the fixed block is the thing just below, again, not including the sum at the bottom, and then we have a difference. Okay, and then all we do is we go to this funding, and which they had before, and they called it sub-fund, fine, and let's work until the difference is equal to 0, and just keep copying from the computed block to the fixed block. So the fixed block equals the computed block. If you notice, there's a little bit of a difference here. So now we just run it and we get no difference. And then it looks so wonderful, and it is, until you have a really big model. And then it fails miserably until you have a big model with a goal seek, and it fails even worse. So now we've got the upfront fee done. Okay, and now let's do the interest during construction. Again, we put the computed interest during construction from our little debt schedule here. I don't know why it's blue, but that's okay. And let me see. For some reason, the commitment fee is all the way up at the top. Notice how the other thing works in yellow. So the commitment fee is we have the total debt commitment, which again, if you follow some idiotic rule, it's just the total amount of the drawdown, which better be equal to the total amount of the repayment. So we get the debt commitment, and then Shift Control R, and then we take the opening balance of the debt and subtract that, and then we get the difference. And I multiply that difference, if you notice, by the construction period. So this difference goes down to 0, hopefully right at the end. Okay, well, this should actually be equal to this, but we might have some circular references that we have to deal with. So we have the to get the periodic commitment fee, we've got the total annual fee, percent P dot A, and we take this number, walk it, and multiply it by our famous little thing here, and then we get a much lower periodic rate, and then you take that periodic rate and you can multiply it by the balance of the undrawn debt, and you got this little thing, and maybe we should put this in. Okay, and we're almost finished, and then I hate this. I really gotta fix the generic macro for this. God. Then let's just practice it. Go down to the computed block, and this was the commitment fee up here. We put the commitment fee in. Where is that? Right here. And copy that across. And did I do that the same thing with the interest during construction? I don't think I copied it. And let's just practice this. So once you've done this and you've made the range names, you can just press the button and we get it working that fast. And if it's a nice small model like this, there's absolutely zero problem with this. But when you've got one of these monster models, it starts to go really, really slowly, okay? And when you have to recompute things like the debt size, it can be a little more painful. So now we finally are up to our debt service reserve account, which was the original reason for this whole model. Now to get the debt service reserve account, we can just put a equal sign and get the total debt service, which is the interest expense, not the interest during construction, plus the repayment. Now you could argue whether I think it would be a ridiculous thing to do, but you could put in the cash sweep. I'm not going to do it right now. So this is our, I hope it goes all the way to the end. That's our debt service. And then let's look ahead one to the debt service. You could go up here, or if you're an idiot, you'd put offset and go up to this one and keep it on the same row, and then put one forward column, and then just do it like that. And so then we get an earlier, and this one is the key, because this is going to define what kind of requirement you have. Now, if you have more than periodic, if you have two periods, and remember the debt service reserve account, this whole 6-month business is absurdly arbitrary. Tiny little argument you can make. So our required debt service for now is just this. We could say, oh no, you got to add two months extra and all that. So that's our required debt service. And then we have to have our required funding, and our required funding is this minus the opening balance. And remember, the opening balance is always just one period before. It's the prior period closing balance, and then we just put in the opening balance equals the closing balance. And then we take this amount that's funded and multiply this by the construction period up here. And then we take how much additional funding we need, and we multiply that one by the operation counter, and the operation flag, excuse me, and that's how easy it is. And then you take the opening balance plus the amount funded, plus the amount we have to be a little careful with the plus and minus signs here. Okay, and we make sure that this balance goes to 0, and we should kind of put our audit flags in. And I didn't copy this one. I didn't copy the required funding across. So this is our required additional funding. And 1 second, we start with this one, which is our first period debt service, which is from a semi-annual debt service. And then our DSRA goes up, and eventually it comes all the way down. So this amount that this is a negative, and it didn't show up as a negative properly, so it's Shift-Control-W, and I hope I'll show some red ones, okay? And finally, the biggest red one is this last one, and you can make a nice kind of argument that these last two, as cash coming in, should we adjust the CFADS for this and let you have more of the debt? You push the debt back if you're doing a repayment with a DSRA. Okay, so that's that. So now let's put that again. you know what, I didn't do this. This is really a little embarrassing. But after we have the depreciation and the funding sources, this is our interest during construction. I hope let's make sure that comes from the fixed block. And then we need to put our DSRA. You press F5 to go back to where you were. And the DSRA right now is 0. And if I would just put the DSRA in here, because it's all a function, and I put the amount funded during the construction period, I get a circular reference. Okay, so we can't do that. Instead, we're going to get that from the fixed block again, and you can see that when you put this fixed block in, it really does kind of make things a little easier, especially if you get used to it, which frankly I'm not. Okay, and then now we go down and make, because we have this is just during the funding, and where is, oh, there's our DSRA account, and it's this line that's funded during construction. Well, the closing balance. Okay, I'm going to put a little underline here like we always should do. And then once we have the underline there, we should put it directly in that little, did I put it in the right place? That was in the fixed block, not in the copied block. So we get our DSRA. And then we're finished with that part of the model. So I think this idea of putting these fixed blocks and copy blocks is a really big deal. Okay, I'm making a video, by the way, and the next video I'm going to make is a video with a really big model with multiple dead issues, blah, 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 blah. It takes a whole bunch of time to just do a copy and paste and illustrate how you can use this, my UDF method, because right now it's still a very simple model, really, and we can, it's not a big deal. So where am I looking for I'm looking for my DSRA calculation. There's our debt balance. And I think if you really kind of do this, it doesn't take a bunch of lines. It's not very difficult, and you get it. You get it straightened out. Okay. So right now, if we have this fixed block and copied block, we have a difference. We run our little. It's amazing how fast it runs, really. I didn't realize that. Okay, and we've got our commitment. And the good news here, again, is we can just start adding things. I hope I can do this. Adding things to our, I just press Control B, obviously. Not obviously, but whatever. Okay, now we've got our whole funding during construction, and we're ready to go, really, except we better take all the fees we have. So we're going to add up all the fees, and we have an amortization or depreciation on all of those fees, and that includes the upfront fee right now and the periodic commitment fee. And let's also do the same thing with the interest during construction. Okay? And, oh shit. Just a second. That was just a scam call too. Okay, now, so this accumulates, and you notice it stops, and then we can just take our depreciation rate from above, okay, and we've got to find this where we did our capex, and we've got our depreciation rate. Remember, it adds up to 0. Shift Control P, Shift Control R. We take the depreciation rate, multiply it by our balance, okay, and then we get our total depreciation as the amount we're taking on our fees plus the amount of depreciation that we took up here, which was down here, and it should have maybe been named something else to distinguish it from the, the depreciation on the fees, and we better go ahead and press Shift Control V for Victor and get our total depreciation. And now let's get our taxable income and get our EBITDA. I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little guilty about doing this, going upstairs and getting our total depreciation and taking this difference and then getting the total interest. It really should have said interest expense, and we can just go down to the interest expense we have here, and then we can take the EBIT minus the interest expense to get the earnings before taxes. And why don't we do this kind of stuff where we put Shift Control E, that's enough, and then we'll go ahead and get all the rest of this stuff, and then we can compute this net operating loss really quickly, but we don't really have any. Maybe we do. Maybe there was. Was there? Did you see a negative sign? Did I press Shift Control Q to make sure that there was a little bit of a net operating loss. So remember, it's almost faster for me to do opening and call this EBT before NOL. And if we just are focusing on the carry forward, it's so easy. It's just with minimum and maximum, and you put opening and add the loss carried out. Is that too fancy? Less NOL used, closing, and then we put our little adjusted EBT, and we go forward, and we get this stupid USD crap. Okay. Okay. And let's make the opening always equal to closing, blah, 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 and get the loss carried as the maximum, not the minimum, maximum of this, or 0. So it's only positive, but we want to put the loss, so we put a minus on the beginning of it. And then for this one, we put the minimum of the opening balance or the positive NOL, and this better be positive, so we better put a maximum of this or 0. That's how you do it, and it doesn't take very long after you've done it 1,000 times, and you add this, subtract this, and then you get your adjusted EBT, which is this, plus the amount you're going to not, whatever, if it's negative, you're going to add back this to get it down to 0, and then you're going to take away the amount you can use, and then you can take this one multiplied by the tax rate. And if you can do this kind of stuff really quickly, if you have one of these horrible time tests, you should be able to do it. So we have these negative amounts that we accumulate, and we use the loss after that. And I hope I did everything correctly. And as usual, we should press Shift Control E here and get it done quickly. Now, if we, the one thing we haven't put in here is that they had a cash sweep. So I'm going to put that as a percentage, and oops, I gotta get this from here, I guess. And we, in the input C, we have this, the cash sweep percent, 50%, okay? I don't know why they put the dividend as the excess. So, and I need to make another video, by the way, on this, using a cash sweep to adjust the maturity of the debt. Now, once we have this number, we put the taxes paid, CFADS, just a minute, and we have this, I put all of this in already. I guess I did. The scheduled debt service is up here, which is, we can just use it right from our DSRA thing. Okay, and then our cash available for sweep. Oh, they had this some. Oh, you see, there's some junk from before still. Oh, I'm going to get rid of all this crap. Okay, and then we take and we put a subtotal. So right here, We have our CFADS, which is minus the taxes. I hope I put that here. And this one is a little concerning to me because the taxes should have been just up here, our taxes paid. Okay, and I put it as a negative number, which was really silly because I've always done it as a positive number, and I hope that nobody would give you shit about that. And then we get our debt service. Okay, so our cash flow that's available for our sweep is this. I'm sorry, the CFADS minus the debt service is the cash flow available for the sweep. Okay, and then we have our little. I'm going to have to, of course, redo all the things. How about I'll just put Shift Control V for Victor and get it all finished here. Oh, shit. Somebody's going to come and bother me now. And then, you know, this is the, for me, you can do this all in one go. There's no real reason to do this. This cash flow waterfall that I do is only afterwards. And then if we look up here to our debt service reserve account, well, after construction, when it's negative, that's really a positive cash flow, isn't it? So what I would do is put a minus on this one, okay, and get the amount funded after the construction. Again, don't worry about the. I didn't mean to press Shift Control C now because we'll do it a little bit later. This cash flow sweep is, we haven't done it yet. This cash flow sweep, if it's 50%, we got to be a little careful. The first thing is we can take this cash flow available for the sweep, and I'm going to press Shift Control E to make a little subtotal around there. We take that number and multiply that by the 50%. Now, we have to be careful about two things here. We take the minimum of this one or the opening balance of the debt. But when we look at the opening balance of the debt, we subtract the amount of the repayment, which we've got an error here. Oh no, this is the drawdown. This is the repayment. Okay, and we put that in as a cash sweep. Now we've got to go back up. Okay, we've got to go back up, and we've got to say, okay, well, if we had a cash flow sweep, we're going to use that cash sweep. So now we're going to go back down to the cash flow waterfall, and it's not that hard. And you could have put something like, we're not going to sweep if it's negative cash flow and some other stuff. And then we've got our debt schedule, and we got to make sure that that doesn't go to zero because we put the minimum in here. I think it didn't go to zero, and I put a minimum. I can't remember if I put that in the video. It better have. The minimum of the, whoops, no. So this was kind of bad. Just a minute. This was the minimum of the, oh, that's okay. That's okay. I think we did do that one together. So we make sure that that's not negative, and we've got our cash sweep modeled. And then we better put in our DSRA refund, which this was the cash sweep. I'm going to put a minus on this and make sure and add that. And then this is the kind of stuff, well, if I did something wrong, we're going to look at and see if, so this is a positive cash flow. Okay, it should be basically the positive cash flow, and then the dividends are just what's ever left over. So let's take this subtotal minus the amount of the sweep and plus the amount of the dividends, and you can say, oh, that was a little messy. You should have put them all as a different amount, and maybe I'm going to press this one, Shift Control G. And then we can get the big thing that we really want at the very end, which, and notice I did not have a circular reference. I was a little bit afraid of having a circular reference and a little bit thinking about this, but we go to our first cash flow statement, which is after the free cash flow, and we look at our financing requirements, and we have the equity we're going to put in. And then we get our dividends. We get a lot more dividends than equity, but they come a lot later, so our IRR might not be very good, actually. Okay, and the IRR, let's just take our dividends minus this one, okay, and shift control Q. Now, this is, so we get an extra cash flow, but we'll put this one here as the XIRR, and I'm afraid of this. If it's going to be too low, we're going to have to put a little bit higher project IRR in. We can do a goal seek, and it's a little bit too low. Shit. Okay, so let's, in our LCOE page, let's aim it, because our interest rate is 6%, let's make aim it. Oh, this is so high, this IRR, but okay. Or maybe 8.5 even, because of the interest rate. Okay, I think that's more than enough, but we could argue about it, all right? And if I computed something badly, I'm sorry. Now we have just about everything done. And all we have to do is make sure that our balance sheet balances. Let's get our revenues here, and hopefully when we put our revenues, we put a double underline. Let's go get our operating costs, and let's take the difference, and then let's get our depreciation and amortization. This one, of course, I'm saying of course, but it's not quite really of course, but this is total depreciation, including the base depreciation, and then we'll take this one minus that one. And then let's take the actual taxes we paid, which were just up here. Okay, and then we take our EBT minus our earnings, and we can put a few little shift control E, shift control E, shift control G maybe. Okay, it's up to you how you're going to do your little rule of lines. And hopefully then we don't have anything kind of coming until we're finished, and we don't know what happened here. Why did we get some funniness going on here? The EBITDA is kind of, why is the EBITDA going down a little bit here? Maybe we, whatever. We have a smaller semi-annual period or something. I'm kind of worried about this. Okay, and then let's put our operating cash flow in, get our EBITDA, put the taxes in from above here, get our operating cash flow. You know, I suppose on this one, it is probably better to put the cash outflows as a negative. So this is our cash flow we're getting. Maybe those. Did I do this? I want to see the negatives. Okay, good. All right, fine. Maybe, what a waste of time. Shift control E. Now we'll put our investing cash flow, okay, in, and let's get our capex. We can go way up to the top to get the capex, or maybe we should just take this from the other cash flow statement we have, where I say the cash flow during construction, and then we're going to get all those fees and interest during construction and all that crap from here. So let's go up here, get the interest during construction, and I'm taking too long to find this, sorry about that. Put that a little bit down there, and let's go get our upfront fees. I'm sure that we should have really kept this in exactly the same kind of format. Let's get our commitment fees up here, and let's get, that gives our total. And okay, fine, let's put this as a minus, and this as a minus, because these are all cash outflows. Okay, Alt E, let's put all of those in. We don't really have to copy it across, but what the hell. And let's see how much of that comes from our debt funding. So this is really all of that first kind of cash flow funding, and then let's see how much we get. We can just press Control D to get the equity funding. Okay, and well, this is the total cash flow from investing. Okay, and you can kind of, so shoot. Oh, God damn. I press Shift Control R instead of C. That I should have a little thing that fixes that. I meant to press Shift Control E. Okay, that's our funding, and hopefully this funding, which, whoops, okay, this funding hopefully equals this funding, which it does. Okay, and then we go across, but then we put all of our financing items. So this is really our financing cash flow. And let's go up and get our debt repayment. And for our debt, I put our scheduled debt repayment, and then I made a separate cash flow sweep, which we can go up and get that from our our debt schedule here. Okay, and then we can get our interest expense, not the interest during construction. How about let's just, where did I put my interest expense in here? Oh my gosh. Okay, well that's good that I found that one. Okay, so excuse me for not putting that in. Oh my gosh, and then we just put our debt service here. Let's just cheat and kind of get it from here. These are minuses. These are minuses. And this is a minus. Okay, if we do it officially right. And then we'll put a minus finally at the very bottom of our cash flow waterfall. We got the dividends. Okay, and then let's be careful now. I guess you could have put the DSRA funded up here, perhaps. Yeah, I think that would have been better. Okay, how about we'll put the, and that's of course our DSRA during construction, and that's an outflow of cash. So we can even find that one up here in our, oh, I hate this. I'm a little embarrassed that it's taking so long. Okay, and of course I made a mistake here. I sometimes almost think sum is not a great thing to do. It's better to kind of add them separately, but who knows? So that we don't need the debt funded, but the debt repay, the DSRA paid, that's up here. Let's go and find our DSRA account. I put a minus on it because if it's a minus, that's a plus on the cash flow. And then we get our total financing cash flow, which is the sum of all of this stuff, all the way, including this one. And look, so our financing cash flow and our operating cash flow are the same. And what you better have in a project finance model is you better have it so that when you take the operating cash flow up here plus the financing cash flow, so up here we have the operation cash flow 10.27, and oh shoot, and there's something clearly wrong with the DSRA. I don't want to waste any more of your time. Okay, I don't think I even changed anything here, but when we put in the cash flow from operations, the cash flow from investing, and the cash flow from financing, the net of those three subtotal lines should always be zero. And when you get that net to be zero, what that means is your balance sheet should really balance. And in fact, what you can do with this is, I have a completely different opinion about this. I could take and add the DSRA funded and subtract, well, I'm going to have to add the negative. I have to be careful about doing that kind of stuff that we have here. Did I do that right? So we got our DSRA and I did it wrong. I should have subtracted the negative and then added the positive. And then we get our DSRA and one more time. Okay. And so maybe I'm a little bit of a hypocrite, but there, the DSRA goes to 0. And we just start doing that for all of the items. So for this one, we just go backwards and get now the old method and the method they used to have this best practice bullshit, or what Shell Oil used to say is, and again I have to do this with a minus, we're going to accumulate all our CapEx and then they go up. And then we're going to accumulate all the fees and the IBC. We almost, okay, maybe that one we should have got from where we did the other depreciation, and then we take this one and we probably put a minus on the depreciation expense up in the profit and loss statement somewhere. Okay, which, well, okay, that will be a negative, I think, now. Okay, and we can get up here our total assets, which are, did I put I put the depreciation in as a negative, and I'm gonna waste time formatting, but that's okay. And we press alternate equal, and we go all the way across, and then it goes down to 0. That's good news. That's exactly what it's supposed to do after it's finished with G maybe, okay? And then let's put the debt balance. Now let me just be a little bit hypocritical here and reverse, because I could do exactly what I just said and take, well, yeah, okay, let's take the opening balance plus the funded, and it looks like minus the repayment minus the sweep. Okay, shit, what a waste. I'm wasting your time with this crap. God, I gotta fix that generic necklace for that. And then let's put the opening balance of the equity, add the net, add the paid in capital, which is all of that stuff on the cash flow statement. That's going to be a positive number. Add the net income and less the dividends, which are going to already be negative in the other cash flow, and put a closing balance. Okay, and we'll just make the opening balance. Okay, I'm going to see this. Okay, the opening balance equals the closing balance. Did I do it right? 257. And then the paid in capital is from our investing cash flow. Equity funding. And then our net income is from our income statement. So you better do the cash flow statement first. And then you just get the dividends. And you notice that, and then I think this is the opening. What's this? Yeah. Let's just press an alternate equal here. And then let's put liabilities and capital. And then put a test, a difference, and then a test. And the liabilities and capital will be our closing balance for equity plus our closing balance of our debt. I don't think there's anything else here. And what's the difference? Is this minus that? Other way around, it doesn't matter. And then our test is whether the let's do equal round of this. Ah, shit. Or maybe. What a waste of time. Oh my God. How frustrating is this? Round, just in case, let's put a round of this, or 0 equals 0. Okay. And for this one, it's true. Shift Control R, it's true. It continues to be true. We better put a Shift Control E. Oh no, we got a false here. And then Shift Control G. Okay, I'll shoot. And let's see what happened here. And I don't want to waste your time, but we've got to find this problem with the 14. I've got to stop this. I've got to pause. Okay, this was a wonderful lesson. I should have just taken the debt balance straight from the debt balance calculation. When I started adding and subtracting these things, I subtracted a negative somewhere. Okay, and then we get them all to be trues, and we'll put some kind of equal and get all the trues there and be happy. Just so content. Oh, so beautiful. Okay, and this model, okay, I think it's a reasonably comprehensive model now. Do one more thing. Let's, oh, come on now. Let's reset our colors. And maybe I should even have, takes a second. When I reset, maybe I should have removed all the conditional formatting, and then Shift Control C, and then we put color the sheet in, and that's the model. I'm sure I could have some problems with it, but it's now nicely formatted, I hope, and I hope it looks a little different. Oh shoot, I was going to do the annual financial statements. I guess I'll do that. Oh shit, what a waste. Okay, let's put let's get all this crap out of here, and let's just get rid of all this crap. Okay, and oops. Okay. How about I don't waste time on the formatting this time? So let's get all of our let's just go and get our financial statements and put them on an annual basis and show you how to do it with a lookup. And so let's just, this is going to be, let's get our titles first. Did I put them in the right order? Okay, I guess. And then let's put the starting period as the, let's get our very first ending period as just the one right before the start. I think we can do this one. Okay, and then we got to do our whole formatting thing. I'm not going to waste my time on that. Let's get this +1, and let's put equal e-date of this, comma 12. No, not that. Or -1, or let's use EO month, because the fancy Excel snobs will want to use that. You better put 11. And then let's put how many, I don't know how many years. We'll put equal sequence. Let's put comma 40 or something. That's probably too many. Shift Control R. And what we of course have to do, I'm saying of course here, we'll need a calendar year. Okay. And why did that? No, I guess I have a space in there somewhere. Okay. And then we're just going to use that for the sum if. Okay. And we'll just put equal year. Oh, come on. And I sometimes get, whatever. Oh, God, what a waste. Okay. And then we'll just, for all of our for all of our revenues, we'll just put the up here, you know what, screw all this crap. Let's just put the year here, okay, which is really, we didn't need the rest of this shift control squiggle, you know, and then we just put equal the sum if, okay, and we're going to go, then if you could use sum if s, and I remember somebody's years ago saying, oh, gee, why don't we use sum if s? There. And then press F4 on that one, and then you just go to this one and press F4 a couple of times and just hold it on the 5, but not on the other one. And then you just, since they're all in the same order, it gets really, really easy. Hopefully, if I could ever find it, periodic financial statements, I hope I took the revenues. Shift Control R, and I'm going to do the formatting later, and then we can just go all the way down, Shift Control R, and you can put all the formatting you want, and then we go down to this one for the operating cash flow, and hey, you just taught me how to do this one, and then these are all flow items all the way down to get to the net cash flow. Okay, Shift Control R, and we've got the whole cash flow done. Excuse me. And of course, I really, this kind of stuff, I once contemplated about writing a macro to take some of this crap away, but okay, and I remember I did something, is this okay? And you can put the formats in, and what, I'm not going to waste your time. What's a little bit different is once we get to the DSRA, you just put equal lookup, and this is why it is good to have this. So if you have the end of the year, then you're going to look up this, and you're going to go all the way up to the end of the period up here, and then we'll go down and get the entire row for the financial statements. Okay. All right. So all of the assets and liabilities are going to be like this. Shift Control. Oops. Sorry about this. F4 on that one, and F4 a couple of times just on that one. Okay. Shift Control R. Hopefully the balance sheet is still balancing. And what happened here? Oh, I went too far. Why did I go all the way to BK? I don't know. Oh, some kind of closing of the stupid thing. So what you do is Alt-O, column unhide. Okay, and we're finished. Okay, and I'm going to finish this video once and for all.